Present.
Deborah Williams,
Present.
Angela Howard,
Present.
Julie Marks,
Present.
Becky Taylor,
Present.
Dee Ray.
Present.
Have a quorum.
Right. I was trying to get my other window open. It doesn't seem to want to open, so I will minimize part of this. There we go. So I need to, everyone has a copy of the agenda. Would like a motion to approve it unless there are changes or additions to it.
Madam President, I move that the agenda for today's meeting be approved.
There's a
This
second?
is Julie. I second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say no. No. Nay. Hearing none, the agenda passes. So our first item of business is our Finance Committee report, and I turn it over to Ms. Deborah Williams.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening, everyone. So good to see all of you. We do have one discussion item under finance tonight, and that is a continuation on the 22-23 budget. For that information, I would turn the meeting over to Mr. Mullins. And please, Mr. Mullins, typically I believe you reference the details budget, but if that is not the case, please just share with us which one we should be viewing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Williams. I'm going to just reference the detailed budget and then the surplus and cash, the one sheet, North Carolina Cyber Academy, April 2023 surplus and cash. But I'll start with the detailed budget, and you'll see that on the second page under the expenses, we've started cleaning that up. When I say we, Acadia and myself, we started cleaning up our budgets, and we're going to go through these salaries and wages in June to be able to bring to the Finance Committee and the full board in the August meeting the final end of year 22-23 budget. And we still have, as you'll see at the bottom of page 2, we're in a negative 290% under summer stipend. And when I said we're going to clean up some of those things, if you look a few lines, maybe 8 or so lines above that under remediation teacher 181, excuse me, we're going to be able to use those funds to zero out the summer stipends. And so that is some of the things that we will do with this budget. And so that's one of the items. I just didn't want the board to look and say, wow, we've spent almost 300% more than what we had budgeted, but we have some funds there for the summer stipend, and we were able to get a grant to help with our summer school program. And so we'll use that money to be able to zero that out. And then as you go through the budget, again, the dental insurance, we had budgeted, I think, about $325, but with the addition of employees, and I forget how many employees we've added this year, that has created an increase in our dental costs. And so we'll be able to zero that out using some of our other benefits monies that we haven't used so far this year. And so as you go through under contracted student services, I did want to mention we'll be ending some of our bigger contracts in this month and in June. And so even though we are in the red with the instructional services curriculum, we'll be able to make some of those adjustments using some 181, 171 and 181 funds. And so I just didn't want the board to be alarmed when you see some of these negatives. We'll be able to clean this up. And then when you look at the big picture of it is the surplus and cash right now. The detailed budget indicates that we would have spent about $88,000 more than we budgeted. Keeping in mind we hired a public information officer and we've added a number of teachers since the school year started. and we're over budget about $88,000. We're going to go line by line in the detailed budget and try to reduce that deficit as much as we can. But even with an $88,000 deficit in this budget, we would still have, we started the school year at a $3.2 million fund balance. 6/30/23, it would be a $3.1 million fund balance. So we would still be in pretty good shape, in really good shape, over $3 million in our fund balance. We are looking at the budget because we know some of the ESSER dollars are going away. And so we're planning with our leadership team, executive leadership team, the principals are involved in this to look at this year's budget and just make sure that we have funds in place with the ESSER dollars going, some of the ESSER funds going away, that we're able to maintain our staffing at the level that we've maintained it. And we're kind of in a situation where we're still waiting to find out what our cap number is going to be. But the main thing about the detailed budget is you're going to see some negatives. We're going to clean that up between now and June 30th. We'll be able to present a clean final 22-23 budget to the committee and the board in August. And then just as a point of information, we're still looking like we would have over $3 million in our fund balance. And I just want to see if the board had any questions as it relates to the budgets.
Board members, questions or comments? Hearing none, seeing no hands, then Mr. Mullins, thank you so much for that information. It might be a good idea, if this is at all possible, for as we are going forward and the budget is being aligned, so to speak, would you be able to provide the board once in the June meeting or the August meeting, whichever one you mentioned, the final product, if we could see where money is being transferred from one line item to another to support this? I think that would be helpful to the board.
Yes, ma'am, we'll do that. We'll be able to explain that in August as well. Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And board members, any questions? Hearing none. I know that was
It's
like
not
a
really a
2-second wait. I
question.
know.
It's a question to say I have questions. So there's a number of like line items I'm curious about, and I was just wondering if sometime we could sit down, I could just ask you what some of it meant. Anybody's welcome to join, but there's too much, I think, for this number, but I just would like to know more. Would that be possible, Mr. Mullins, for us to sit down and talk? Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Anytime.
All righty. And so on that note, Madam Chair, I turn the meeting back to you.
Much. Excuse me, our next item on our agenda is our governance committee report, and I turn that over to Dr. Audrey Martin McCoy.
Good evening, everyone. We have one action item on our governance committee agenda for this evening. It's the district handbook, and there's some amended sections and appendices. And I'd like to call upon Mr. Hill and Mr. Mullins to walk us through this information.
Good day, board members. So I wanted to bring your attention to a few sections, beginning with section 2.1. And I am scrolling, and I hope each of you is scrolling, as it's a voluminous document of 75 pages. So I just wanted to be really specific as we are looking through the document. The changes that we are asking reflect conversations that we've had over the last several months about updating our attendance and engagement policies. So you'll see under section 2.10, this is page 16, some specific changes where we are clarifying when a student may be withdrawn. You'll see a student who, for example, accumulates 10 or more unexcused absences. That is new language. A student who fails to participate in their courses may be withdrawn. The law which established the virtual charter schools states that the virtual charter schools may define participation and withdraw students from our school who are not participating. And what we've done in the past is primarily focused on attendance, and we've tried to meld attendance and engagement. And the purpose of these changes is to try to be really, really clear that we want to look at both attendance and student participation as vital pieces for success in this school. Paragraph 2 addresses some of the steps that we are taking procedurally prior to withdrawing someone. The law dictates that if a student misses 3, 6, or 10 unexcused absences, we are to communicate with the child and the parent. So what we've done is after 3 days, we initiate a phone call. After 6 days, we actually send an email, and after 10 days, we send both an email and a certified letter indicating to the child and the parent that they may be in violation of our the state's compulsory school attendance law. And actually, between the 3, 6, and 10 day notifications, our teachers, counselors, and social workers are constantly engaging with the child and the parent to provide notification and intervention. So we again wanted to be really, really specific in our policy, and we've come across a few instances this year with regards to a student who may be in violation of the student code of conduct. And so we wanted to be expressly clear that in that rare instance, a student could be withdrawn as well for violating student codes of conduct. Let's move to 3.1, and that is on page 17. So you'll see that you are probably very familiar with this chart. The chart shows the attendance tiers for the various grade levels. So we are changing the attendance for K5s such that we would only allow students in K5 to participate via what we're calling the traditional tier. That pretty much means that a child would be required to attend live lessons in K5. So in the past, we've had 3 tiers across K-12. The traditional tier, which requires a kid to attend live lessons, a moderate tier, which requires the kid to attend some live lessons, and the child would be allowed to actually miss classes and watch a video, and full flex. If a child maintained a certain grade level, then that child wasn't required to attend any live lessons. But our experience and frankly, when you think about education at K5, has told us that we really need to emphasize the engagement and the interaction of the child with a live teacher. And that is why we proposed having only 1 tier for K5. And for grades 6, 12, we would have 2 tiers where if you maintain an 80 or better, or if you perform well on the prior year's EOG or EOC, you are not required to attend live lessons. And we have several students who have, I think, been able to be very proficient in this environment. They've demonstrated through their grades, and they've demonstrated through various assessments that they can function highly, do very, very well in this environment. So we want to continue to grant them that flexibility. But for students who maintain a 79 or below, we are requiring those students to attend live lessons. And the various criteria and the description are enumerated in the tables on the on page 17 through page 19. So do you have any questions about this table? You are familiar with it. We have provided this to our parents and various stakeholders and have tried to make modifications, but have tried to be really, really clear about what our expectations are moving forward.
I do have a question about the K-5 change. How many of our current students were participating in it in the other tiers of that in that level? So I'm wondering how that seems to be a big change from what we tout and have become known as for a school of flexibility. And I just want to make sure I understand, sort of the thoughts behind all of that and how we convey it going forward to our families.
So the count is no more than 10%, because when you look at by the second or third tier, the students' grades aren't such that they would qualify for the full flex.
Okay.
It's been few and far between, to be quite candid. And I think that's one reason why we decided that, given the totality of the data, it would be better to require all kids in K3 and 4-5 to participate in the live learning sessions. I mean, we definitely had some parents who raised concerns, and typically their children were somewhat precocious, and let's just say the parents were very involved, but that has not been the case for the vast majority of the kids in K3 and 4-5. I've had conversations with Mr. Copeland about ways we can continue to offer flexibility for those kids who may need some additional flexibility just given their unique circumstances. And so the way the policy is written, it gives the principal some flexibility to address unique cases. And I think we should continue to collect data and maybe come back with some different options, maybe next, maybe the semester beginning January 2024, if we see that we need to try to be more flexible. But and when you look at other schools against which we benchmark ourselves, they have a similar structure where they require more live lessons and live learning for children in elementary versus giving more flexibility for kids in 6, 8, and 9, 12. And when I've had conversations with people at the Department of Public Instruction and legislators, oftentimes, they will ask questions about the socialization and the live learning associated specifically with children in K-5.
Mhm. Good, thank you for that information.
I had one question, Mr. Held. I've just lost it. Something was struck through about yes, okay, the bottom of page 18 under traditional class structure, the required viewing recorded class session if live learning session is missed, that was, as you say, strike through. And I was wondering what the rationale was for that.
Frankly, part of the reason we are making the changes, not only in terms of what we think is educationally sound, but it's also us trying to figure out how do you monitor.
Mm,
And it the system seemed to have imposed more cost for staff to monitor whether someone has watched a live recording than benefited in terms of us changing the behavior and raising the expectations of kids.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
what we've found is, when the lesson is engaging, when the kids really feel involved, the children are attending live lessons,
Mhm.
and the children are going back to view the recordings.
Mhm.
And so we
That makes
want to
sense.
focus on figuring out how to change the culture
Yeah.
by helping our teachers to be effective instructors in this type of environment.
I love that. It's great. Thank you.
Too. Very good.
Any other questions or concerns?
So I had an email conversation with Attorney Martin, and in some instances we were using the word encourage or expect, and so where we want to say you are required, we are specifically using that word. And her question was, so if you require, then what are the consequences? The the potential consequences are that you may be withdrawn because you are not participating as we have described participation in this environment. But that is a long ways down the road, we hope. And hopefully that would be few and far between, because we are going to engage the student by improving and helping our teachers to be more effective in instructing this in this environment. We are implementing a multi-tier system of support that focuses on attendance as well as academic performance. So, one of the questions and challenges that perplexes me and the principals sometimes is, how do you personalize the education and meet the children where they are while you're dealing with such a wide range of students? I mean, we have kids, as you all know, who are enrolled in competitive sports and are just doing extremely well academically. And then we have kids who have enrolled in our program because, for many of them, this may be their last chance, and they're trying to figure out, how to be effective. And then there are kids who we just need to figure out how to connect with. And so I wanted to use the word may versus shall be withdrawn, for example, after so many days. But every time I receive an administrative withdrawal request, that there's a story behind the child, and I'm asking for specificity in terms of when we communicated, what we communicated, what was the response. And so before we withdraw anyone, we have done an exhaustive search, and we figured out as best we can, whether this is the right fit or not for a child.
Question. I know we're switching some of the terminology to attendance and away from engagement in the policy as far as the handbook is concerned. Will our teachers have the liberty or some freedoms when it comes to engagements? Because we are a virtual community, you have a student who may log on, doesn't turn on their camera. You don't know if they're behind the camera or not, but yet we're counting them as being present in the classroom for that day or attendance. What do we have in place to kind of help that student to make sure that student is engaged, that they're actually present and is not someone else sitting behind the camera just logging in for that student?
So I believe one of the best ways to measure engagement is to actually look at the child's performance through grades and through various assessments. And so, one of the things we're going to be instituting are exit tickets on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. The elementary school is exploring, how we might actually incorporate participation, as a way to provide additional points for a child to improve his or her grades. And this summer, we're going to be focusing on how we can develop effective lesson plans. And so the lesson plans are not only about the content, but it's about the instruction and the processes that you use at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the class to ensure, to the best of your ability as a teacher, that you are literally engaging and teaching the kids. So I'm asking our principals and assistant principals and instructional coaches to do more mini walkthroughs, such that you are going into the classroom randomly and you're observing what happens during the beginning, the middle, and the end of the class. And so, this is about us inspecting what we expect and providing as much support as possible. And it's also about, frankly, triangulating. So we have observations, we have the iReady assessment, and we have in-class assessments or in-class tests. And so, we are able to, frankly, know the children and how well they're performing. And it's up to us on a weekly or bi-weekly basis to convene as grade levels and as groups to have conversations about specific children, and frankly act on it and not just talk about it.
Mr. Hill, I had a question, or I guess maybe even a comment about the principals as they look at incorporating participation as part of the grade. Not exactly sure if what the current literature or thought may be out there, but I know that some major school systems at some point tried to kind of pull away from that. So it'll just be interesting to hear what the principals come back and have to say about that participation grade, so to speak. Very interested to hear what the latest would be in the field on that.
So yes, you raise an excellent point, because so in this environment, how do you walk over and look over the shoulder of a kid as he or she is working on an assignment? So we're able to do breakout rooms, for example. You're able to model a lesson and then ask the children during independent time to do work, and maybe you can hop into a one-on-one session with the child. So, one thing we're doing is expanding the length of each class so that we can have more opportunity not to just lecture, but to provide information and then give the children some independent time during that lesson to demonstrate learning. And frankly, it is about just, developing a rapport and developing a relationship with each of the children. Each of the grade bands will be required to provide instruction from 8 to 3, 8 to 4, and so there would be small group breakouts, after the large group lessons that are focused primarily during the morning hours. So much of the afternoon will be spent around one-on-one or small group engagement.
Are there any requirements that students must have their camera on for a certain amount of time or for any time while they're involved in instruction?
Under our current proposed policy, we are not requiring kids to turn their cameras on. However, what we've seen is that when you have these small group discussions, kids are more willing, or they feel more comfortable turning on their cameras. And as I've visited certain classrooms, I've seen instances where a significant number of the kids have their cameras on, and in other instances, no one has their cameras on. And I think there's a direct correlation between the engagement of the teacher, the excitement of the material, and the relationships between the kids and the teacher to whether or not the camera is on.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions?
I do. Maybe it's just a comment. I think that at some point we might want to revisit this camera issue. Sometimes cameras are not on because there's a lack of interest in the subject matter, whether it's required or not. So I think we have to weigh those things but we still need a practice, if not a policy in place or an expectation. And when you come to a digital school, there are certain expectations that you must or should adhere to. That in my mind, that needs to be something that is expected. I don't know that it needs to go to the level of policy. I certainly believe it needs to be practiced, however. So I do think that at some point we need to revisit that. And I think that revisiting needs to occur before the next school year.
And I just wanted to acknowledge, this conversation and where we started, not that that was a bad place to start with, the tiers and the tables and how we track it and the amount of time it would take, and this really focusing on instruction and, student engagement. That's all, best practices at a large scale, but I just think it's a really neat shift in focus and perspective. And I'm really excited to see how this plays out. So it's just great to hear.
I am too, Julie.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I will be honest, I sort of fluctuated on this from time to time, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I think there are many variables at play here.
Yeah.
So just FYI, food for thought.
If I may, one of the observations in looking at the policies, it does repeatedly say, students are encouraged to have their cameras on. So when you use the word expected and encouraged, all of it is really the same because it's something less than require. So to change it from encourage and expect, when you say those words, hey, that's great that you expected, but I'm not doing it because I don't have to, is kind of the way it ultimately ends up. So just making sure that that's clear. Also, there are portions of the policy that ties into teachers and how teachers can have some discretion with respect to how they handle their class session. But because the policy doesn't require it, that would also mean that no individual teacher, even if that teacher thought it was really important for this particular lesson, if there was a particular activity going on that teacher may say, man, it'd really be important for everybody to show their faces, because the policy overarchingly makes it an encouragement and no exceptions for maybe some teacher determined situations, then an individual teacher wouldn't be able to make that determination in their individual class either. So just wanted to make sure that you all understood that the impact of that.
Does that,
Go ahead, please. Go ahead, President Hamilton. Okay, I'll go. So my researchy head was wondering, does Canvas have the back end ability to spit out like the amount of time a student is on or off camera? Because it could be a really cool and simple correlational study just to see, right? I mean, what if all the kids that have their cameras off is because they already know them, just likely not true, but they know the material so well and they're the most proficient students. You know, that's a very different story than if it's a really sound correlation between the kids having their cameras off and the ones that are really struggling. It'd be like a low, if the software could spit that out, then it wouldn't be that big of a lift, but if not, it'd probably be in. Do you know if that's possible?
It's something we can look at. I mean, we're moving to a new system.
Okay.
I'm drawing a blank, but it's a system developed by Zoom. It's called Zoom Class. And I believe it was designed specifically for K-12 instruction in an online environment. And so you heard me speak about breakout groups and the ability of the teacher to speak specifically with one child. Zoom Class will give us more functionality than WebEx, for example. So we can research, you know, what we can record or what we can measure. And one other thing I would put on the table is that having a camera on may be one way to measure engagement. Participating in the chat feature
Totally.
could be another.
Yeah.
So do you mandate that they participate in the chat? And
Right.
you know, how many clicks must one make in the chat box in order for it to be counted as proficient?
Yeah.
Yes, I you know, kids should turn their cameras on. And to be quite candid, I think what we expect, you know, we will see more of that. But one concern is making something a mandate and not being able to enforce it in this environment. So you know, can we get buy-in and have student ambassadors or student leads who will push everyone else or pull everyone else towards them?
That could be cool.
interesting.
Thank you.
Loving the fact that I'm hearing Zoom over WebEx. That is just making me smile. My heart is smiling.
But to say, do we get the benefit of Zoom Classroom?
You're buying that. Are we getting the Zoom suite so that we can all have Zoom? I mean,
Yes.
but anyway. So yes, I'm hearing everything that's being said, and so you know, I'm good.
So definitely one area where we want to enforce the requirement is children have to participate in classroom, district, or state assessments. It's, you know, so, you know, we're doing a good job, but we sometimes will run into issues where a parent, for whatever reason, and their children are not participating in our NC check-in, in our iReady, in the EOC or EOGs. And you, once you come into this school, have said that you will participate in these various assessments. And, you know, we're going to look at the data and frankly, have a conversation, if not withdraw certain folks who may be repeat offenders. And it's a challenge, I understand, for the parents, the kids, and our staff to administer such a logistically complex assessment system at the end of the school year and at the end of the semester. But that's our system, and we need people to participate so that we can ensure that we are reflecting to the state how well our kids are learning.
And not to belabor this at all, but just going back a little bit in the conversation, this evening's conversations and presentations, when you spoke earlier about withdrawing kids or for the purpose, because they were not attending class or school as they should, and then making some administrative decisions regarding that. My thought at the time was, okay, are there certain, prescribed steps that thinking something through and having a prescribed process can sometimes be two very different things. And so my question was going to be for Attorney Martin is if we need that that process or those things that absolutely must be asked or attended to versus having a thought or having conversations with students regarding the why of why they're not attending. And then, so certainly these specific steps before a kid is withdrawn from school. And I did hear, may in that conversation. So just wondering, is there a prescribed process for that, or is that something that's being worked toward?
I will tell you, and I don't know if Superintendent Hill can co-sign this, or maybe Ms. Bryant or some who've had to kind of suffer through long conversations with me about edits. Anytime I see, this is categorically, and I've written the entire administrative code for the community college system. I've written statutes. So I'm very much about like language. And anytime I see the word may, I don't have a problem with the word may, but I always want to see it attached to standards so that the party who is subject to the may has a clear understanding about what they can expect for the person who is making the decision. A lot of times, and not speaking about this particular situation, but just in general, a lot of times in policy writing, people will want to give the decision maker discretion. And I don't have a problem. I love discretion. Decision makers should have discretion, but a way to protect the entity, the individual decision maker, and to be fair to the party subject to that decision maker's decision, I always recommend that there be objective factors that you can list so that if you're ever challenged, you can never be challenged because you are biased or because you happen, or discrimination. If you have factors that are objective that upfront let you know the types of things you're going to be thinking about. And the way I draw it out, I say, people are like, well, I don't know yet. Well, tell me, if you may, let's take this example. If you may withdraw this student versus another, what are the things you're going to care about? Like when you're making that decision, what types of things would make you say, well, in this instance, even though I may, I'm going to decide to not withdraw them. But in this instance, even though I may, I'm not going to withdraw them. What are the things you think about? And whatever those things you think about, great, let's put those down as factors. And it's not necessarily absolutely this or absolutely not, but it helps everybody, the people who are subject to it, they can say, well, oh my goodness, my kid's status in the school is on the line. These are the three things that the decision maker is going to be considering. And therefore, when I make my arguments, when I want to provide information and support, I can provide information towards those three things. And then a decision maker has clarity on, when I'm making the decision, I'm looking at these same three things. And then when I give you my decision, I'm going to provide a rationale that's along the lines of those three things. And then when you sue me later or you challenge it later, I'm protecting myself and insulating myself and the entity because I've given you objective factors that you knew ahead of time, and I provided support for it. And then your claim that I'm biased against you or discriminatory against you is a very low chance of that being successful. So that's my spiel for any time there's a may do something that is always attached with some objective factors. all the time, like no, every situation, not just this one, but literally anytime there's a may, it's definitely my recommendation that objective factors be attached to it.
And question with the attendance policy and so forth, considering we're a virtual community, and especially in particular for our elementary K-5, where learning coaches are an integral part of that educational process. What kind of objective standards do we have in place with that as well too, within our policy and our handbook? Or is that something that we need to look at? Because those learning coaches are, I feel like, very integral in the educational process for our younger learners.
And you raised some very good questions, and in response to what Attorney Martin has said, that the three things that come to mind, and I think they definitely have been factors, and we need to be specific, is the number of consecutive days missed, the response to the outreach. We will reach out after 3, 6, and 10, and then after 10, and in some instances, parents respond. In some instances, they don't respond. And then even before someone may be withdrawn, they are provided a warning letter, specifically enumerating what the concerns are and what the response will be if your child is withdrawn. One being, we'll have to refer the information back to the school in the district in which you reside, and we will contact the social services department of that county. And I think the third is active participation and attendance in intervention sessions. We have attendance teams who specifically convene around figuring out the challenges for a specific student, and is that student participating, following the plan. So those are specific check marks that I look for whenever I receive an administrative withdrawal request. But Attorney Martin and Ms. Williams raised an excellent point, excellent points in being specific about those.
If I can just add that if you look into section 2.10 in regards to Ms. Howard just inquired about, it's the second to last paragraph. That is a new addition, or was that in there? Sorry, I have like a few things in there. We do want to really look, there's documents that accompany our in our handbook, such as the entrance agreement, in which we want to be explicit and state the expectations for our learning coaches, our students. And so adhering to that would be something, we want to ensure that our families or parents understand that, and the expectations and how that ties to students' admission and stay here, being a member at NCCA.
Okay, thank you. So that would be a part of that entrance agreement you're saying, Ms. Bryant.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
One last follow-up thought, that's for me at least. I just couldn't agree with Attorney Martin more. 1000%. I think in all aspects of life, I agree with that. And so, assuming we all do, has somebody gone back through all of our policies and done the May check and make sure that we have standards, associated with any time we say May, or is it a work in progress? That's the end of the question.
So yes, it's always a work in progress, but we definitely have procedures associated with administrative withdrawal of kids. But I can draw up something to be more specific to ensure there's a minimum checklist.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense to me. Okay.
All right. That's all I have for the review of this portion of the handbook. And I want to recognize Mr. Mullins briefly to address some of the changes that we are asking regarding technology requirements from the Department of Public Instruction. I believe those are added as appendices at the end of the handbook.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Hill. As a part of the Children's Internet Protection Act, and also as a part of our E-rate funding, we as a system and a school, we have to have a technology responsible use policy. And so we've created a new policy there. We also, in years past, have had a technology acceptable use guidelines, which again, the first one was a responsible use. This is an acceptable use. We had to have those differences outlined. We already had the acceptable use policy, but we revised it. And then we had an internet safety policy in the past, and we did some revisions to those two policies. Very, very few revisions, but the one I did want to focus on again is the new one, if we can, is the technology responsible use, and that just it kind of gives, well, it gives our students and our staff the guidelines as far as how, they are to use their Google accounts, how they are to use their laptops and any other devices, because it's not just laptops. We have a number of other devices that we provide. So anything related to technology, we're giving guidance that there's guidance from NCDPI that we follow, and then obviously there's other federal guidelines as it relates to technology that we follow. Some of the things like we have to provide a internet safety program for our students and staff, and that's something new. But in order to receive the E-rate funding and in order to be compliant with SIPA, the Internet Protection Act, Children Internet Protection Act, we have to provide some PD for our staff, and also we'll do a Canvas class for all of our students, and so we'll get that started in August when students come back. And then obviously in this policy is the expectations of how you use the various technologies, rules for how you use the resources. And then also there's a component in here about web-based applications and the use of that. And then obviously the restricted materials on the internet. Parent consent, we have to have parent consent, so they'll sign an internet parent consent form. We address privacy in this policy, and then the use of personal websites as well. And so there was so that is the technology responsible use. And again, this is so that we're compliant with SIPA and we're compliant with our E-rate. Then the technology acceptable use guidelines, that is one that we already had in place, as well as the internet safety. And on the internet safety policy that we already had as a system, I just wanted to bring the board's attention to the second paragraph where it says, to the extent practical, technology protection measures shall be made available, and this is on page 1, for all computers accessible by students. Maybe the copy you have, but after speaking with Attorney Martin, we want to add after acceptable by students, we want to add provided by NCCA. And so be made available for all computers accessible by students provided by NCCA. So the technology that we provide, we're going to include those that language at the recommendation of Attorney Martin, and these will be in the handbook as attachments. So to Ms. Howard's point too, Ms. Howard, as a part of our entrance agreement. These three policies and guidelines are part of the entrance agreements, and parents have to sign indicating they've read and they agree to these various policies. So this is all kind of new. But again, in brick and mortar school systems have already been requiring students, staff, and parents to sign use policies. And we're just trying to get compliant so we can continue to receive our federal funding and our E-rate dollars and stay compliant with NCDPI. And we have to submit these policies to NCDPI as well. Any questions, board members?
Mr. Mullins, I do have a question, and you may have covered this, you may or may not have covered this, but when I was just thinking about training that students might get on a new platform or a new system, like for example, if we go to Zoom Classroom, will students have an opportunity to be trained on like that new platform so they'll know how to use it? Or are there any opportunities for them to learn?
Yes, ma'am. So all of our new platforms, that both students and staff will receive training. Matter of fact, I met with one principal, I'll meet with the other two tomorrow to schedule those trainings for the staff. But when students come back in August, we'll start we'll embed those courses in the Canvas, and students will have to complete those trainings. And so we have vendors that we've already reached out to that help with those trainings as well. And for the vendors that do not help out with the trainings, we're going to develop the courses and embed it in Canvas for our students so they receive the proper training on new platforms.
And I would imagine that training might differ for particularly thinking about students in the K-5 environment versus the 6-12 environment. So it's very good. I think that's very helpful because I think in a lot of cases we just assume that young people know what they're doing with or just older people, whoever just knows what they're doing in terms of like new platforms. So it's nice that you have something in mind and already organized for that.
Yes, ma'am. So some of the courses are going to be built out K-5 and 6-8. So, and then some things, we can make work K-12, but we know that we've got to build out in several instances because of elementary, a K-5 component that's a little bit more student friendly versus 6-12. And we'll do that.
Exactly. Thank you. Were there any other questions for Mr. Mullins or for Mr. Hill?
I don't have any other questions. I did want to bring something to your attention as well regarding the internet safety policy. It's an interesting misalignment between federal law and state law. One of the things I was about to change until I went and read the federal law and saw that it was the case in the federal law is the definition in this policy of a minor, and it describes a minor as someone who's not attained the age of 17 years. In North Carolina, the definition of a minor is someone who has not reached the age of 18. And so normally in our school, and especially for high school, you think of, okay, you're an adult when you're 18 and 17-year-olds are still minors. Per this policy, and when it comes to any potential violations of this policy, things that talk about images of minors, because I know, and I've seen violations of policy with students sharing inappropriate pictures of themselves. And it'd be important to, I guess, pay attention and know that for purposes of this policy, someone who is 17 would not be considered a minor for purposes of this policy, whereas in North Carolina, they normally would be. So that's just some misalignment in the federal law versus our state law that would matter in the event there was some violation by some high school students. So just wanted to just make a point to say that.
Do we need to clarify that in the policy?
Well, no, I mean, the policy here is what the school is actually required to adopt to be in compliance with the people who are giving us the money, basically. So
I see. Okay.
I'm just wanting to point out that if a situation arose, the way that, we would normally be thinking about a minor in high school is anyone who's not 18, there are less minors. So someone who's 17 would not be a minor if there was some type of computer related violation. So the way that they may be handled or may be required to be handled would be different than normal as it applies to this particular policy. And just because it happens all the time, like all the time.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
I'm just bringing it to the attention of the board that there is a misalignment there that could make a difference when it comes to discipline and who's disciplined for certain things because of that difference in the definition.
Well, my point, Attorney Martin, is that somewhere we should let people know that we do accept federal money and have to, adhere to whatever federal requirements there are. And so I just feel like there should be some disclaimer somewhere so that they don't say to us, well, we didn't know, kind of thing. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting too far into the weeds on this, but I just, I always try to lean on the fact that we let people know what a policy is and what any policy is, and that we adhere to whatever the rules are for them.
It may be, and I don't know, I don't have all the policies memorized. It may be important in other areas where, the definition of a minor matters, or when someone turns 18, certain things apply. It may need to be an exception made or a note made, footnote, except for and reference this policy or something like that. But I don't know. That would only be necessary if there are other areas in your policies that, depends on someone's age or being a minor matters. So that just would take looking to see if it impacts some other area where someone may, oh, I didn't know that. Well, if you reference this one, then they would know it. But if there was no other reference to being a minor, it wouldn't necessarily come into play. But that's something I don't know. I would have to look to see.
Okay.
So, one interesting connection is when you think about compulsory school attendance, students who are 17 or 16 and 17 are not required to attend school, right? So,
Correct. By statute, by North Carolina statute.
right. Yet they're minors.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there are inconsistencies within the law. And yeah. So I guess we can definitely take a scour through our policies and see if there are instances where 16 and 17 and 18 don't line up. Maybe they line up in your mind, but they don't necessarily line up to what the federal, the state, and the policies all say regarding different aspects of education.
Yeah.
Hey, and board members, I would like to give a shout out to the technology department. They have really ramped up with various programs and downloads and working with Philips so that we can monitor any language, any visitation of websites that don't need to be visited by kids, any threatening wording. I mean, we have some programs purchased where we can monitor those types of things. But to be honest, to have worked with over 3,000 students this year, we do not have a lot of issues to be a technology school, to be a virtual school. We have some issues, but our students and our learning coaches and our staff, and they do a pretty good job of adhering to the rules. But you always have to have the policies to make sure the few that maybe want to break the rules don't. So, but the technology team has done a good job of getting us compliant. So I did want to pat them on the back a little bit.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the district handbook as it's been amended.
Is there a second?
This is Dee. I second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Our next item on our agenda is our consent agenda, and we have the operations report from Mr. Mullins that you've seen as an informational topic. And unless you have any questions, we'll move forward with the action part of our consent agenda. And that is, and I will pause because I said, unless there are any questions. And if there aren't, then we will move forward with the action portion to approve the minutes of the April 27, 2023 meeting minutes and the approval of the May 9th, 2023 emergency meeting minutes. Are there any changes or additions to any of each of those documents? Hearing none, then I would ask for a motion to approve both of those meeting documents, meeting minute documents.
This is Angela Howard. So moved.
This is Audrey Martin McCoy. I second.
All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed? All right. Great. The next part of our agenda are some action items around our board. And we have 3 board members, Dr. Audrey Martin McCoy, Ms. Angela Howard, and Dr. Julie Marks, whose current term ends June 2023. And so each of them have agreed to serve again if reelected. And so I would like to make a motion, and I will do it individually so that we adhere to that, each individual person. I make a motion to reelect Dr. Audrey Martin McCoy for an additional 3-year term from 2023 to 2026. Is there a second?
This is DI second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. That motion carries. I would like to make a motion to reelect Ms. Angela Howard to an additional 3-year term from 2023 to 2026. Is there a second?
Julie, I second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. And I would like to make a motion to reelect Dr. Julie Marks to an additional 3-year term from 2023 to 2026. Is there a second?
This is Angela Howard, and I second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Welcome to your 3rd-year terms. And we're glad to have you
Thank
continuing
Thank
on the board.
you. Thank you all.
All right. And let's see, get back to this. Our next item is the election of our board of directors for the 2023-24 school year. And at this point, I just want to let everyone know that I am not running for president again. I have decided that I've served my term as president, and it's time for others to step forward and have their time in that area. So I am making a motion to submit a slate of officers. And the slate of officers that I'm making a motion on would be Dr. Julie Marks as president, Ms. Angela Howard as our vice president, Deborah Williams as our treasurer, and Dee Ray as our secretary. And if there is there a second to that motion?
This is Audrey Martin McCoy. I'd like to second that motion.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Welcome to our new board.
Thank you all.
Yay.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Jill, for all that you've done as a president. It's been amazing to learn from you and yeah, I look forward to seeing you continue. You'll stay on the board, right? Just not as president role?
Yes, I'm staying on
Okay,
the board.
good.
So.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I just want to make sure I look here at, I know we have, board of directors meetings and committee meeting schedules. Mr. Hill, would you like to talk about that?
Yes, ma'am. Board members, if you would open the second document, it lists the proposed meeting schedule for school year 23-24 of your monthly board meetings. So as we have in this year, the board would convene from 5:30 to 7:30 on the third Thursday of each month. And there are 2 instances when the board would not convene on the fourth Thursday, but would convene on the third Thursday. And the first instance is March 21, the third Thursday. So during the fourth week of March, we are holding our spring break. And the second instance would be May 23rd would be the third Thursday. On the fourth Thursday, we are holding our graduation. And similar to this past year, the board would not meet in June or July and would not meet in November and December.
Okay.
And the second, well, any questions regarding the board of directors annual meeting or monthly meeting? And the second document is a list of the different times and the dates when your committees would meet. And what I'm proposing after having some conversations with each of you is shortening the 1 hour meeting to 30 minutes. And I as I recall in virtually all of our meetings, we're quite proficient. And as we think about balancing your need as full-time folks who are volunteering, you all have careers and you're, of course, trying to spend as much time as you can with your loved ones. I believe that's one area where we can save some time. And so we're still proposing that the committees meet the Thursday, well, the week prior to the full board meeting. And the time that we're proposing is still 5:30. I know we've had some conversations about changing that time, maybe convening the committee during a lunchtime or maybe convening it before the end of the workday. So, we can continue to have conversations about, what might be best for the board. Are there any questions or any conversation that you want to hold right now regarding when the committees might meet, or would you like me to maybe conduct a survey and see what the consensus is in terms of leaving it where it is, or maybe moving it to a different time?
I know for me personally, it would be very, very difficult for me to hold it anytime during the workday for me, anytime between 8 and 5, so to speak. So
I agree.
I just wanted to put that out there.
Yep.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, the proposed meeting times are before you for your approval.
Question, is it possible to add for the board, for our board meeting, to go ahead and put on the schedule our in-person retreats so that we know ahead of time? If we could go ahead and include those dates or months?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
So those meetings would be in October and April if we follow the pattern from this past year. And board members,
I'm sorry.
are you interested in holding two retreats and they would both be in person, or are you interested in holding one? And that one would be in person, or do you want to hold two? One would be in person and the other one would be virtual?
I would like to vote for one in person for my own selfish reasons. Just because traveling twice a year is more difficult than traveling once a year. But if we all decide that it'll be twice a year, I'll be there. But that's my 2 cents.
Or if we keep the two in person and we keep continue with the format that if you can attend, you can attend virtually. And so therefore you wouldn't be required, Ms. Ray, to have to attend two meetings, just you could choose one and just log in and attend with us virtually possibly.
Right.
As Mark did on our last retreat.
That works.
I like that, Ms. Howard. I really appreciate the opportunity to see people in person. And so, yeah, if people could make it, great, but it wouldn't be an expectation for the second one. Even if you're local, no expectation. But if you would like, you could be there. That's my druthers. But again, open to whatever works for others.
I do like it being on the date we would have had the meeting. I think that's
Yes.
been working well.
Yeah, agreed.
I did have I'm sorry, Mr. Hill, I keep
You
interrupting.
go,
Please go ahead.
You go.
Okay. I did want to I did have a comment about our committees. I think in some preliminary conversations, we may have talked about the committee structures and whether or not we wanted to keep the committees the way that they are currently structured as the finance, the academic excellence, and the governance committee. And thinking about finance is probably one that we want to keep, but as we are kind of looking toward the future in some of our goals, I'm not sure if we want to think about how we might want to restructure some of our committees to fit the needs of learning more about our charter and the different work groups perhaps that can come out of this. So I think that there may be some flexibility, and I don't know if we want to talk about that tonight or if that's something we want to talk about as we move forward in the next few months.
So we've talked about beginning with the end in mind, and for the purposes of what we're trying to accomplish is having the board and the Charter School Advisory Board approve our renewed charter in 2025 or 2026. And the vision is that some of you could be called before the Charter School Advisory Board or State Board to answer specific questions about curriculum, teaching, engagement, so on and so forth. With that in mind, we would need to engage our staff and our board around amending our charter, making sure that you are all very well versed in the content. So we would establish work groups. And so, part of the thinking is that we establish 3 work groups that report out to the established committees, or do we replace the committees with the work groups? So I will have some conversations with our officers and the board meeting and the board members and come forward with a recommendation at the August meeting about how we should manage the board's work over the next year and so forth as we move towards changing our charter and having it approved by the Charter School Advisory Board and State Board.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good. couple things before we adjourn. I would like to just get a quick update on testing. I know it's going in like gangbusters across the state right now. Wondered how things were going with that.
So, Madam Chair, may I ask the board to approve the meeting schedule
Sorry,
as
yes.
amended?
Okay, so can we please have a motion to approve the meeting schedule as outlined by Superintendent Hill?
This is Julie, so moved.
And this is D, I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now, could we get an update on the testing?
So let me recognize Ms. Bryant and Mr. Powell. I know you have been out and about observing, and Mr. Powell has actually posted some really good pictures and stories on Facebook. So, Mr. Powell, anything you would like to add?
I was just really impressed with how smoothly everything was run, how spacious the testing areas were, and how away they were from other areas. I mean, I went to a few hotels, went to community colleges, and there just didn't seem to be a lot of distractions. The students were very easily processed, and they were taken to rooms where it was quiet, where they were just away from any bustle that may have been going on in the building. And I went to Greensboro after their online issue. I guess the web, the login had been changed on them, but they got all of that worked out. And by the next day, they were running smooth too. So it just seemed to me like a well-oiled machine. Maybe it was, just those initial impressions. But everywhere I went, they just seemed to be running smoothly. The response was good from the parents. The engagement was good. And, I guess we'll see how the results are. So.
Great.
Ms.
Ms.
Bryant?
Yes, so we are still testing. We have some groups tomorrow, and still trying to work on that participation, making sure we catch everybody. The goal was to have smaller testing groups this year, and then also add additional sites, which just requires all hands on deck. And so, as we are experiencing this with this year, once testing is complete, we'll take a look at, our processes and procedures, and work on areas that need to be worked on, and highlight areas that we did well in. So, but we, the goals of increasing sites, we did that, and to have some of the sites on college campuses, which allows our students to be exposed to beyond high school. And then to create smaller groups, to make it more intimate for our students. We did accomplish that by having smaller groups. So, but we'll continue to work through, and looking forward to seeing the results.
Great. Thank you for the yeoman's effort that everybody on the staff and families have put into doing this testing. I know that it is takes a logistic wizard to master all of it. So we thank you for everything that you guys are doing on that. Quick update. Last week, I signed 282 diplomas. And yes, I did sign in every individual one. And it's important to me that I do it, because it's easy to just say, here's a stamp, here's an electronic signature. But I feel like actually signing everyone and looking at everybody's name, it really imposed in my mind all the hard work that went into getting that diploma, from our families, from our learning coaches, from our staff, from our teachers, from our administrators. There's a lot of stories and a lot of people in our village and our family that have put this effort forth for these students to graduate. And so it was my great honor to actually sign all of them, and I did it all in one signing. So yes, that's a lot, but like I said, it really, I told Dr. Vecchione that same thing, that I hope that it was as rewarding for him to actually sign it as it was for me with 15 letters in my name, but he has 21. So I hope it's as rewarding for him to sign it at all, each one of them as well. So, and on that note, I just wanted to remind everyone that graduation is next Thursday, 5/25 at 6 p.m. at NC State McKimmon Center. And I hope everybody has responded to Ms. Daniels about attending. We hope that you can make it, and we know, Dee, that's not likely for you because you are dealing with other school and travel and graduation and everything that you have as well.
Yes.
So I just wanted to put that out there. Hope
How
to
did you
see
say that
everyone.
was, Ms. Hammerbrand?
Thursday, 5/25, a week from today at 6 p.m. at NC State University McKimmon Center.
And they're asking board members if you could arrive by 4:45, 5 o'clock, just so you can get your robes and things taken care of.
Right. Okay. So on that happy note, if I don't think there's any other business that we need to discuss, so I motion that we adjourn. I guess I actually can do that in acclamation, right, Attorney Martin? So I declare that we are adjourned.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. And thank you, Jill, again for your leadership. I agree with Julie. It has been quite phenomenal to watch you work over these past 3 years, and we really appreciate all that you've done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
And thank you for indulging in my learning on the job.
Yes. Well, we're all there. We're all learning together.
Definitely.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.